Hello everyone, back with an audio video for the first time in a while today. I am in Tokyo, Japan, drinking coffee flavored milk. And honestly, today was an extremely fantastic day, probably one of the best days I've had in a long time. Maybe it's just surreal, you know? Like, I arrived yesterday, didn't really do much because I arrived in the evening, but if you have, like, seen a lot of anime, being in Tokyo is like being in an anime. Everyone's speaking Japanese, there's Japanese text everywhere. And the culture is just so interesting. At least in Tokyo, everyone's happy. You don't really see any homeless people or anything. There were quite a few tourists, but it's definitely vast majority Japanese people. And there were so many cool stores, tech stores, watch stores. And what I want to talk about in this video is e-earphones. It's a earphone store in Akihabara with like over 1,000 earphones. There was a crazy selection over there. And I'll just go through some things I tried and some impressions, I guess. So the first earphone, of course, I tried was the Zero Red, the critical one, and it was really bad. The treble was really horrible, as expected. Basically the same thing as my initial review. And the Kiwi Ears cadenza sounded pretty good after coming off of the Truthier Red, but the treble definitely needed some refinement and it was a bit muddy. Let's see. What was next? Okay, Monarch Mark II, there was clearly lacking treble detail. You can see this on the graph. The low to mid treble has a lot of dips. It's even audible in tone generator. Monarch Mark III, the treble was extremely harsh, not even worth it. And then Unique Melody Mext, M-E-X-T, was the most surprising earphone I've heard there. The bone conduction driver, I feel, made it sound like my earlobes were vibrating. Or felt like they were vibrating. I've never experienced that before. And I definitely think the bone conduction driver was doing something to that benefit, but it wasn't fully neutral. If you look at the graph of the Mext, you'll see like a recession at the ear gain region, but it doesn't sound that recessed because the bone conduction driver is not being captured by the 711 rig, but it definitely sounds bassier than neutral, and it sounds a little bit strange, but it's definitely the only IEM I heard there that surprised me. Let me see. Tried Z1R, IER Z1R, famous Sony IEM. The treble is harsh and it sounds muddy. The Legend X I tried had massive channel imbalance, was just very bassy, nothing really special about it. And when I tried listening to Anole VX, all of the switches were set to on, so it was just sounding really muddy. I don't know exactly how it sounds with the switches set to off. I did EQ to it, I think, but it's probably accurate. And I listened to the Blessing 2. It was muddy, and there was clearly treble issue. You could hear that at 6.8 kilohertz there was a recession. You even see this in the graph. I checked into a generator. It was there too. It just sounds like it's lacking detail. For an over-ear, I heard the Moondrop Venus, and it was really bad. The treble was extremely horrible. It was very jagged and grainy. Mest Mark III is super muddy, and the treble is harsh. Yeah, Mext was just by far way better than the Mest Mark III. There wasn't the Mest Mark II to try, unfortunately. And yeah, so let's see. Ananda Nano is really harsh in the highs. It's recessed in the mid-range. Other than that, it was not terrible. But, I mean, yeah, the treble is bad, and the Moondrop Para was really bad. The treble is harsh. There's a stabbing 9,500 hertz peak. It sounds low res, and they had HD 650. It has a slight 9,800 hertz peak, but it's actually pretty smooth, and although it is dark sounding, and I don't know, it is better than HD 560S. I did think that there was some audible distortion in the bass when I listened to HD 560S, or in the lower mid-range as well, which was a little bit surprising, but I did compare it to the HD 650 and I didn't hear any distortion there. Well, the HD 650 has lower distortion in the mid-range than the 560S, although the 560S has lower sub-bass distortion, but yeah. let's see, what did I try afterwards? I did try the Dan Clark Stealth. That was one of the worst headphones I've ever heard. Like, it graphs one way, it measures completely different on a real person's head. There was like no bass to be found, even though, on the gross measurement it shows Harman compliance. And it was just trash. And let's see, what else? I did try the Hi-Fi-Man Sisvara. The treble is a bit harsh, and this was actually a really interesting over-ear headphone. So the treble is a bit harsh, in the mid-range sounds low-res and a bit recessed, but the bass resolution and yeah, I thought the bass was really good. Even though this has inverted polarity, I found that the bass was pretty enjoyable. I don't know, I'd say that the bass and treble, the bass especially, is really good on the Sisvara. The treble is not amazing, but it's pretty good, and the mid-range is definitely the weakest element of that headphone, but other than that, it was fairly enjoyable to listen to, although I still think that the HD650 is a better headphone overall than the Hi-Fi-Man Sisvara. But yeah, I mean, maybe, I don't know, the mid-range was just not high enough resolution on the Hi-Fi-Man Sisvara to really justify the cost. And also, I was really limited by the music selection when listening to the Sisvara. They only had what was on the computer at the time, so I kind of had to make do with that. But yeah, surprisingly decent headphone, the Sisvara. Okay, did I even listen to anything else? Yeah, the Stax SR-X9000. I listened to that, and the treble was a bit grainy. The mid-range resolution was pretty good, but there was clearly no bass to be found. You can even see on the graph below 40 hertz, it just drops off a cliff. So really not acceptable quality. And I tried the HD400 too, very similar to the 560S, although I heard the 560S in a different store, then came back and heard it at e-earphones, and also compared to HD400. I don't know, the HD400 and 560S sounded the same in the e-earphone store, but I remember hearing the 560S back in BIC, whatever it's called, and BIC camera, and I thought it was flawed. But I just came off of Truth or Nova, so I don't know, maybe I was just used to listening to poor quality. Yeah, so that's pretty much it, I think. So quite a few headphones I got to try, and the takeaway is that the best over-ear headphone I heard there was the Sennheiser HD650. Surprise, surprise. Obviously didn't waste my time listening to LCD5 again, but I wish I could have done some equalization to see, how HD650 would perform in that regard. But, I just think it's interesting how, there are all these headphones, and I still think HD650 was the best there. Although, as I said, it was dark and the bass was obviously lacking, and I would want to EQ the bass up to Harman to see how it performs there, distortion-wise especially. And, I mean, I do think HD560S had audible distortion in the bass. I tried, going into Tone Generator, and I can hear the driver fluttering in the sub-bass, so that's clearly not ideal. But, yeah, after Akihabara, I went to Shibuya, and I went to the famous Shibuya Crossing, just went around there. Oh yeah, before leaving to there, I went to this ramen place with a conveyor belt. It was really cool. And, it was just such an awesome experience. The public transportation is great. I thought, when I first came here, it was going to be a real struggle not knowing Japanese, but all of the kiosks at the train station have English as an option, so even in the trains, there are announcements, there are signs, they alternate between Japanese and English. I don't know how it'll be in other parts, but I'm going to Kyoto, I think, on the 18th, and yeah, so we'll see how that is, and then after that I'm going to Osaka, and then Hiroshima, and back to Tokyo. I don't know what I'm going to do. Maybe I'm going to go to Ginza tomorrow, and then Shinjuku. I do want to go to Tokyo Disney Sea. I'm not sure exactly when I'll do that. Maybe Monday. But yeah, wow. Tokyo. Really, so the interesting thing is I woke up at 7 a.m. and I wanted to go somewhere, so I just like got up and went to Akihabara, and there's nothing open. I'm just like thinking, wow, Japan is just so tacky. I went to McDonald's, and McDonald's was actually really good. The bread tasted really nice, and the Fanta melon was okay. But yeah, the quality is good, and even though I said it was like tacky at first, once the stores opened up in Akihabara, it just became so evident that I was completely wrong, and this place is amazing. And yeah, so just having spent one day here, I feel like I've done so much, and it's just been such an amazing experience so far. And I'm leaving on the 31st, so have a bit of time left. Definitely going to try to make the most of it. But anyway, that's it for this video. Yeah, I'd like to give a shout out to Ninja Coma 3D Must Bring Us, Waytaker, the Christopher Yu, the Artful Reaper, Tripped, and Bicep. Thank you guys a lot for supporting the channel. I really appreciate it. Be sure to join the Apple House and Discord server if you haven't. I'll see you guys next time. I'm out.